So, right out of the gate, which Mel Gibson animated performance do you prefer? Chicken Run or Pocahontas? You're taking a long time to think about this.
Because I have to think about it. My immediate gut reaction is Chicken Run.
Right.
But
I'd say trust that instinct.
But John Smith is probably the best part of Pocahontas.
That's also true, because I don't like Pocahontas very much.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah, maybe we should do an episode on it. But it's so boring.
It's true.
Beautiful music, lots of great stuff in it, but historically inaccurate and very boring. Yep. Sorry.
It's historically accurate, right? In the second one, she really marries the guy she marries in real life.
Yes, in the direct-to-DVD sequel, they essentially created a feature-length redactment, or whatever.
Oh, well.
All right, let's start the show.
Let's do it.
Welcome, everyone, to Afterthoughts. This is a podcast where we rewatch movies every week and compare our first and second impression of those movies. And then we discuss a related topic. My name is Joshua Kazemi, and I'm here with my co-host, Cole the Coleman Taylor Thomas. I'm bringing it back.
Bringing it way back. That's me.
I'm going to do that every week, man. I don't know why I ever stopped.
I know. I don't know why you did either.
Who knows why?
It's what got the people hooked, you know? They said, that's an interesting name. I'm on board.
So this week, we are not talking about Mean Girls. I know you might have read that somewhere in the description for last week's episode, but, you know, things change. A Mean Girls episode will come soon. But this week, we're talking about Chicken Run. That's right.
Run.
2000s Claymation Chicken Run.
Claymation Chicken Run. Fantastic.
Before we dive in to our first impressions of Chicken Run, would you like to take us through the plot?
I think the title says it's all. It's about some chickens running, you know? There you go.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'll give us the plot. So, there's some chickens on a farm, a chicken farm to be exact, and they're trying to escape because the farmers sell their eggs, but when they stop laying eggs, they get the axe and are eaten. And they know this because they're conscious chickens. And so they're trying to escape. And they can't figure out a way, so their last idea is to just go over the fence that keeps them in, but they can't find a way to do it until, lo and behold, a rooster goes flying over the fence. And they're like, whoa, thought we were chickens. I didn't think we could fly, but that rooster flew. Let's figure out how he flew. So he jumps on board to help them figure out how to fly, as long as the main chicken lets him stay hidden so that the circus doesn't find him, because he belongs to the circus. And I assume she just believes he belongs to the circus because he's a flying chicken and doesn't know the truth. Flying rooster, sorry. And then tensions get even higher when the farmers order all this equipment to start making chicken pies, because Mrs. Tweedy is a greedy farmer and she wants to make more money than just off eggs. So they're going to turn all their chickens into chicken pies, which I don't know how that'll work because I'd feel like they'd run out of chickens really fast. But whatever. She's got some ultimate scheme. And so they're still trying to learn to fly, but the rooster's got a hurt wing, so he can't show him directly. And then they find out his wing's not hurt anymore. And so he runs away and admits he only flew because he got shot out of a cannon at the circus. And she feels betrayed. And that's where I'm going to leave the plot, because that's the low point of the movie. And I'll just leave it there.
Yeah. So I saw this movie in the year 2000 in theaters.
Mm-hmm.
And even though at some point in my life, my family owned this movie, but I don't think I've ever seen it again.
Wow.
Which seems impossible, right? Like, if you were a kid growing up with the movie, you've seen it. But I don't remember ever watching this again. I've only seen it that one time. And I remember liking it. I thought it was really funny, and yeah, I didn't remember too much from it, like plot wise, but I remember it being very funny, liking the characters, and that it was chickens trying to escape. But that was kind of it.
Well, quite a different experience from you. So my family grew up on the 3 Wallace and Gromit shorts. We watched them all the time, over and over. So I saw this movie in theaters. We immediately got this movie when it came out, and I watched this movie I don't know how many times when I was younger.
Oh, great. I had no idea.
I know. I saved
That's
these kind
awesome.
of secrets now just for the show, just so
That's
you'll be
great.
surprised, Because I feel like there's not that many. Most movies I've seen a lot, but so when there's one, I'm like, oh, he doesn't even know. And on top of that, we had 2 toys ever that were just figures, but they quoted lines from movies. The first one was the guy from Atlantis, the bad guy. He had some toy, and you pushed a button on him, and he would say all the quotes. And then we got the rooster from this one. So I remembered 5 lines from this movie just embedded in my head forever. Because he would just click his button and he would repeat them. He'd repeat the name's Rocky. Rocky the Rhode Island Red. Rhodes for short. So he said that all the time.
That's
what a
pretty
ridiculous
long for a toy.
line. I know. And not only that, I think it was verbatim Mel Gibson's voice. I don't think it was
Awesome.
some oh, let's just get some voice actor to do it again for the toy. I think it was legit Mel Gibson's voice on the toy.
Awesome.
I know.
Man, that's great. We have very different experiences with this
I
movie.
know.
That's going to be good.
It is.
I don't know why I never rewatched it. I never went out of my way to avoid it. And I've always looked back at this movie fondly. I just, for whatever reason, never rewatched it. And I don't really know why, but yeah, I think I thought it was a great movie, really funny, really clever. And I anticipated appreciating it much more this time around, because I do like this animation style, not just stop motion, but claymation specifically, which we'll get into later in our topic time. And I like that it's got an added texture of claymation to a stop motion movie. It's just I thought it was great, and I was looking forward to watching it again.
Yeah, like I mentioned, watched it so many times as a kid, and my whole family loved it. We just loved the whole claymation aspect. It was different, and we already loved Wallace and Gromit, so this just was a natural, oh, let's just put on Chicken Run and watch it. And so, I don't know, it was just a great one to watch as a kid, and we watched it a ton of times, but then it did kind of just fall off. I haven't seen this movie in years. So while I watched it a lot as a kid and remembered a lot of the plot points, I couldn't remember it perfectly, and was very curious what I would feel like watching it this time around, because it's been so much time since.
I'm very curious to know how you feel about it.
Yeah?
Yeah. Any other first impression thoughts?
Not really. I feel like it's always the same. When I watched a movie as a kid, and it's been a long time past since then, pretty much the only thing I remember is faintly remembering if it was good or bad, some of the plot points, and that's it. I feel like it's never awesome, well in-depth first impressions when it's oh, that was a movie I watched when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's all I got.
Okay. Well, let's go into seconds.
Let's do it. You go first.
So interesting thing. This has happened maybe once or twice in the history of our show. I think maybe Edward Scissorhands was one of the times, but I currently feel torn still. I don't really know. I guess I don't know if my opinion of it changed at all. It might just be exactly the same, which is weird because it's still fresh in my mind. Mm-hmm. So before I rewatched it this week, I always just chalked up my feelings towards it are based on the fact that I haven't seen it in a long time, and I did remember liking it. But even now, it's yeah, I like it. It hasn't changed, even though I've been refreshed with another viewing of the movie. So I have some more specific things, but ultimately, I think it's a good movie, and I liked it, and I thought it was funny, but nothing spectacular, I guess.
And I think that's right where I fall too. Watching it again, years and years later, it's good. It's a good movie with funny parts, but again, just like you said, nothing spectacular. And it did it just lost a little bit of its luster that it like had. Like it shined so brightly before, and now it's like it's funny and it's good, but I don't have like a huge want to watch it again or anything, or like I'd be fine never watching it again. Not because it's bad. Like I'm not saying like, oh, it's terrible, I don't want to watch it again, but I would be fine not watching it again.
Yeah. One big thing that stuck out to me in the very beginning, and then I kind of just kept like held on to for the rest of the movie, was I got like a real like strong Toy Story vibe from it. And for those of you that are unaware, Toy Story is my favorite movie, and I didn't hold it against this movie. Like Toy Story was 1995, this was 2000. I totally like would understand if Toy Story was an influence on this movie. But I just couldn't get it out of my head. Like the fact that they're trying to escape and there are these elaborate schemes, and to the rest of the world, especially their two farmers, they aren't really aware that they're like essentially sentient and can think and make all these plans. And so those elements of it just reminded me of Toy Story, and even the score reminded me of Toy Story. So the whole movie, I kind of kept comparing the two, and Chicken Run never was like, those comparisons never really hurt Chicken Run. I just kept thinking, yeah, that may be influenced by a previous movie that was a fantastic movie.
As most movies are. It's really not fair. I mean, I can kind of see some of it, especially because I'd say they were both out of the norm animation styles during their time. Most things weren't 3D animation when Toy Story came out, and I'd still say most things aren't claymation, and definitely weren't back in 2000. And on top of that, there are some thematic elements, but I still think it's kind of a stretch to say I mean, I would say Toy Story definitely influenced it and has influenced many children's stories since then, but I wouldn't say this one more than any other.
Sure.
Maybe,
yeah, and I probably agree with that as well.
I'd say the most is the point you brought up about the chickens being like sentient, but no one else knows it. Like the farmers just think they're chickens. Yeah.
But another thing was like, so early in the movie, it's like a couple minutes in, we're setting up this pretty silly premise, and it's very funny. It's very comedic, obviously, and it's intentional, and it's great. It's very enjoyable.
Yeah.
And then the movie takes a turn very early on when you see the first chicken get taken away and axed. And that moment to me was also reminded me of Toy Story, because it's like, this is a movie that's a silly comedy, but there's real, authentic, dramatic weight to their own premise. It's not overly convoluted to invent a story here. There is an inherent story. Like, what if these chickens were alive? And that's really all that's all that would take for your suspension of disbelief. Just the fact that they were alive. The rest of the setting and the weight of the drama is real and authentic. And I think it's similar for Toy Story. What if the toys were real? And that's kind of it.
Yeah. And I really enjoyed that about the movie, though, that it took, because it is this comedic kid movie, but there is like a more dramatic and deeper element there. It doesn't just stay at that level. Like maybe when we talked about Despicable Me 3, there's no like extreme moments like that or anything that pushes you to that level. But in this movie, like I was even watching this with Jake, and when that happened, he goes, dang, I forgot this movie gets so dark.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's true. It does, especially for a kid's movie. But I enjoy that because it's also like real, and they're not afraid to take that step. And I liked that about the movie.
Yeah. And it's like real dramatic weight, but it's also not like explicit or like gratuitous, you know? It's still a kid's movie, and I would still be fine if a kid watched it, you know? Like, they struck a good balance of there being dramatic weight to the story while still maintaining, like, essentially a G rating. Might be PG, I don't know.
I don't know.
Either way.
And another thing...
Okay, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, it's a very short point. I just wish I liked the movie more.
I know.
I don't quite know why I don't like it as much.
I don't know. I think it's just a time element. I think...
Maybe.
Because none of the characters really stand out to me like extremely like characters in most other movies do, I would say. They're all kind of just fall into this normal category, while like Woody and Buzz and characters like that kind of just stick with me forever.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what does it for me in the end.
And there's only 2 characters here in Chicken Run with arcs.
Mm-hmm.
And, maybe it's unfair for Toy Story because they've had 3 films and they kind of blur together in terms of like character arcs that all the characters have gone through over the course of 3 movies. But if I'm trying to remember back to just the original Toy Story, I'm pretty sure there are more characters that deal with their own kind of things. And I guess aside from Buzz and Woody, it's mainly just the toys struggling with whether or not to trust Woody at some point in the movie because they think that he's turned or that he's hurt Buzz. So that tug of war is interesting for those characters. It's kind of shallow in comparison to the main characters, but there's still something going on there.
Yeah.
And maybe in Chicken Run, it's just our 2 main characters, Mel Gibson and what's the main chicken's name? Rocky and
Ginger?
Ginger. Yeah, it is Ginger.
Oh, there you go. It's just like run together in my head. But what? It's just so sad because I agree with you on that. I wish I liked this movie better because I think they pulled off so many things so well. And one is just the obvious of the claymation. I think the claymation is fantastic in this movie. And I think it just takes real patience, as I'm sure most animation styles do take patience, but especially just claymation of just like moving a figure like one moment at a time. I am always really impressed when these people that create both this and the Wallace and Gromit series can pull these off because I think it's awesome. And I like that it's like a fresh, like I mentioned earlier, since it breaks from the normal mold of just 2D animation at the time. I felt it was a fresh take on it. It was an animation style I wasn't used to seeing. So, yeah. And I think they pulled that off.
It almost feels like this amazing short film.
I see it. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Like it's a movie that plays before another animated movie.
Yeah, but it's feature length.
It is. It's feature length, and it doesn't feel too long. Or at least it didn't to me. And I thought it was breezy, and that's good. And maybe I see this is the problem. I did the same thing for Edward Scissorhands. I wasn't quite sure before we started recording how I felt about it, so I'm like spitballing here. Like I don't know if it's maybe because I want greater stakes, but what's greater than like it's life or death for them? So I don't know. Maybe they just didn't feel super grand.
Yeah, I don't know either. It's something in the middle of the movie for me. I can't remember. But I remember at the end being like, I remember all those parts happening, but at the same time, I remember being like, that's it. Like, I was hoping there was something more. Like, it feels like there's something missing just like right in the middle. And I can't really explain it or put my finger on it. So, I guess I can't really blame the people who created it either if I can't think of anything, but it still just feels that way.
Yeah. So, well, okay. So, there is a low moment in the movie. And it's largely based on the lie between Rocky and Ginger, / their plan not working, before they decide to build the big flying contraption. And so that works cinematically in terms of a 3-act structure. But I guess maybe I was looking for more of like, they break free, and then there's a low moment. Like, they pay a heavy price to break free. And then they can, there's a small question of, do we want to break free? Like, now that we're free, what is there? But ultimately they do want to break free, and they know it's just a moment of doubt. And maybe they think that they're free, they're on the other side, and the farmers come back to get them. And so the climactic moment is like outside of the farm and them trying to escape. Does that make sense? Does that sound like it would have been a grander
maybe. I guess it depends on how you pull it off.
Maybe.
I guess just because another part is just that the climax ends up being so ludicrous, I guess. Just that, like right after that low moment, they decide, you know what, forget all this posh stuff. Let's build a giant flying contraption and fly it. Just get rid of any like preface of we're not sentient beings and just fly. Also, why pretend you're not sentient if they're killing you? Like, why not be like, hey, we have feelings, we're alive, and we can maybe not talk to you because we're chickens, but clearly are, like, living normal and are organized. Like, why would that... I don't know. Like, Mrs. Tweedy's pretty heartless, so maybe she wouldn't have cared anyways, but I feel like Mr. Tweedy would have been like, oh, gosh, they know, like, things. They understand. They're conscious.
And if he kills all of his chickens, then he won't have, like, purpose in his life anymore.
Exactly.
You know, his whole purpose is to catch one of them, you know? What if the movie is way more, like, deep than we think, and maybe the absurd ending isn't real. Maybe they all die.
Oh my!
And the ending is not real. You know, it's like
stop.
This metaphor for them dying, them flying off into the sky together and escaping.
Oh gosh, please stop! I hate anything that's like that. I'm gonna throw a video game reference in here. That's what a lot of people think Majora's Mask is in Zelda, and I hate it.
Oh.
Although it makes a lot of sense, actually, I still just won't jump on board.
I understand.
But yeah, no, please, I don't think that's it, and I hope it's not.
Yeah. I don't either. Be pretty funny, like this huge, ambiguous ending.
It is interesting that they find out that the chickens really are, as he kept saying, organized in the end. Like they don't hide it all the way to the end. They like let themselves be known that they are intelligent, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hard movie to pin down for sure.
Yeah.
But I think that's what adds to it at least being good. That there is something about it. There's something that draws you to it, even though you can't quite put your finger on what, like, isn't so great about it.
Yeah, I definitely think it's solid. I think all of these thoughts, for me, have just been, like, grasps at why I, don't like it more than I do.
Yeah.
But it's definitely solid, and I would recommend it to anyone who hasn't seen it.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of makes me want to go watch Wallace and Gromit, though, and see what I think of those now.
Yeah.
Me and my brother would always just say, cheese, Gromit! Because he was obsessed with cheese. I never got it. Well, that's all I really got for Chicken Run. Short and simple.
Yeah? All right. So, should I read off our Twitter poll?
Go for it.
Okay. So we're trying to do Twitter polls for every episode, and so keep a lookout for them. You can follow the show at Afterthoughts Pod, but it's confusing. There's no E in the after because it was too long and I couldn't get it. So just follow the link in the description, and be sure to participate in the polls. So this week's poll is, what's the best animated movie of the year 2000? So here are our contenders. Our first option is Chicken Run, obviously.
Obviously.
Our second is The Emperor's New Groove. Good one. Our third is Titan AE.
Oh, yeah.
I threw that one in there for you.
Thank you.
And number 4 is An Extremely Goofy Movie.
All right.
So you want to guess which one of these movies was considered the best movie of that year, according to our Twitter fans?
I'm going to say Emperor's New Groove.
Oh, very interesting choice. Why would you say that?
Let's see. I feel like
because you think
not everyone saw Titan AE. And an extremely goofy movie is a sequel, so I don't know. And then
that's true.
I could have been Chicken Run. I could see maybe Chicken Run. But Emperor's New Groove was just so funny and catchy, and I'd say more popular.
Yeah.
Was I wrong?
You are correct.
Yes.
You're correct. 57% of the vote went to The Emperor's New Groove.
There you go. What's all the other votes?
29% went to Chicken Run.
All right.
14% went to An Extremely Goofy Movie.
Okay.
And 0 for Titan AE.
Oh my god!
Nobody voted for Titan
That
AE.
is so sad. It's a terrible movie, but it has such a great place in my heart. That's so depressing.
So funny. Yep.
Oh, well. I would watch that in a heartbeat for this podcast.
Yeah, I know you would. Thanks, everybody, for voting. That's fun. We got to keep doing that.
Yeah, we do.
All right, so topic time.
Topic time.
Today, we're going to briefly talk about claymation and then sort of motion our way into a fuller discussion about stop motion in general.
I cannot believe you just used the word motion in that, like in a verb form.
I did, and I used just the word in general like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
Should we start by my very nitpicky and maybe pretentious difference between the two?
Yeah, sure. We had to have this conversation right before we started recording because I barely knew the difference. So let's go.
So it's just the word clay. It's very simple. All claymation, or most claymation, I would say, is stop motion animated. But not all stop motion animated movies or shorts are used with clay. So that's it. That's it. Wafer thin distinction.
Just think of them as squares and rectangles.
And for those of you that may not know, stop motion animation is, you've seen it. I'm sure you like movies that are stop motion animated, but they're taken by taking a still frame of a set. Usually it's characters that are created either by clay or they're 3D printed or they're models or whatever they may be. The animators go in frame by frame and move the characters, take a picture, move the characters, and then animate them together. So it's very much like traditional drawn animation, but with physical models that are being moved on set. It's painstaking, but it's amazing. I would highly recommend anybody just Google, there's a particularly good Coraline one. If you want to look up Coraline behind the scenes GIF, and there's just like an amazing GIF of the animator actually working on it, and you're seeing the whole thing. So he's moving at lightning speed because it's sped up, and you're seeing Coraline move in real time as he's moving her. It's very cool. And stop motion is awesome.
There was a video of Tyler, the Creator, who's like a rapper, hip hop artist, and he wanted to get into stop motion in general and wanted to see what it was like. And so he visited a set where they were making a stop motion, either short film or film, I can't remember. And the guy was like, we're lucky if we get 8 seconds done, like a day.
Yeah.
It's like a second an hour.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's crazy.
If they're working 8-hour days, they might be working even longer than that and still only getting 8 hours.
I know.
That's nuts. Yeah, painstaking for sure.
It's insane.
And it's not even just that, it's not something that you just appreciate because it's difficult. It's also stunning and amazing, and it's just so cool. It's the combination of the two, and there's just something special about a stop motion film.
There really is. I mean, Kubo and the Two Strings was my favorite movie of that year, so...
It's a good one.
I know. I mean, it was a good movie in general, but honestly, it being stop motion definitely added.
Yeah.
For sure.
So we were thinking about just talking about claymation, but the unfortunate thing is that there's not a ton of claymation specific films. We have Wallace and Gromit, but apparently they've only had 2 feature films and several shorts, if I'm not mistaken.
I think they might even only have 1 feature length and then 4 shorts.
Maybe. There you go. And I've only ever seen the shorts, and they're very funny.
Yeah.
They're great. But yeah, there's just not a ton of it out there. I was actually looking at a list, and the only ones I know of are the Wallace and Gromit ones, Chicken Run, and I guess the Gumby movie. Maybe I saw that, but I don't remember it. For me, claymation is the episode of Community that's claymation.
Yeah.
And those Christmas specials, which we can talk about. And that show on Cartoon Network, what was it called? Moral Oral, maybe?
Yeah.
And Robot Chicken. Those are claymation.
Yeah.
So So that's it. You know, it's like a couple of things. There's not a ton of it.
And then, did you mention the Christmas claymation movies as well?
Yes.
Yeah. And then what about The Nightmare Before Christmas? Is that only?
I don't think it's claymation. I think those are models.
You think those are models? Man,
I think so. They do look like claymation, though.
I don't know. Well, that's crazy. Then there are so many fewer. Yeah, that's true. I don't know a lot of claymation. If we take stop motion completely out, it's hard. It's a tough one.
I don't. I'm trying to look it up. I don't know. I don't know if it was clay or not. I don't think it was though. They're sculpted character models.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like if you compare Nightmare Before Christmas with Chicken Run, I would say Chicken Run is definitely more claymation because it has that Wallace and Gromit sort of feel, or those animated Christmas special feel, and I think it's because of the clay. Whereas Nightmare Before Christmas, it's maybe the mouth movements and the facial features are more clay-like.
Yeah,
but the rest of it doesn't really feel similar.
I think we need to call in an expert.
Yeah, or you know what? I'm probably just being super nitpicky. Like I'm creating this distinction. Who knows?
I'm sure it's true though. I just don't know it.
It's kind of like that argument of like, is Avatar: The Last Airbender anime? It wasn't made in Japan, so it can't be. You know, it's like ridiculous. Who cares?
Yeah.
So I apologize.
But I mean, no, that's a good argument though. Is it anime? Let's be real.
I don't know. There are people that like hardcore are like, it's not made in Japan. It's not anime. So, of all those stop motion animation, claymation or not, do you have a favorite claymation movie? Is it Kubo?
I'd say right now it's Kubo, but there's still just so many great ones out there.
Yeah. I mean, Fantastic Mr. Fox, which we mentioned a couple weeks ago.
Phenomenal.
Claymation or stop motion.
I would watch James and the Giant Peach again. I know I liked it as a kid. I'm curious to see what I'd still think about it. Nightmare Before Christmas and Coraline, both great.
I need to see Coraline.
Yeah. I haven't seen Paranorman or what's his other one? Frankenweenie, his other.
Right. Yeah. You have seen how do you say it?
Which one?
That Charlie Kaufman one.
Oh, Anomalisa.
So let's set aside story and plot. How is it in terms of stop motion animation?
Oh, phenomenal.
Okay.
To a fault. Oh, it's insane. It's so weird.
The poster, or one of the posters, is the main character like wiping away the fog in the mirror.
Yeah.
That must. I mean, I'm assuming that was amazing.
Yeah, it was great. It was
in stop motion.
It was eerily strange how realistic it was, because it's very much not a like fictional, fantastical movie at all. It's very set in reality and based on normal things. The main character has some like psychological issues, but other than that, like it's very set in reality, at least in this man's reality. And he has some weird like psychotic moments that then kind of step out. But even in that, it's still based on the fact that this guy's just insane. It's not in some other world. So it's weird how you're watching these claymation figures just act normal and do normal things and be extremely realistic.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of people who really enjoy that movie. I've talked to people who enjoy that movie. I just do not. It's not a happy movie. It's really rather depressing. And when I think claymation, I'm like, oh, happy, like fun movie, usually fantastical. And it's like none of those things. So it's just not my cup of tea.
It's very different.
I can see people going to see it and enjoying it for what it is, but I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Other than the fact that, yes, it is very good stop animation.
I figured that was your stance.
Yeah. I'm curious what your stance would be if you saw it.
Yeah, I mean, I want to see it. I really like Charlie Kaufman. I think I would probably like it, you know.
More than
just
I did.
knowing what I think of his films in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to see it.
So we talked about a few others that have stop motion in them that we didn't even think about, right?
Yeah, I wanted to bring those up. There's two other kinds of stop motion that I wanted to bring up, like stop motion used in live action films that sort of like fly under the radar a bit, like The Empire Strikes Back, and I'm pretty sure it's the scene with the AT-ATs on Hoth.
On Hoth.
Like there are moments where those are stop motion animated. And I guess they do probably stick out now.
I know. I'm curious to go like watch that scene and be like, oh, that's clearly stop motion.
I can see it in my head, and now that it's like hard to not see.
Exactly.
But also even like I'm pretty sure like you've seen the original King Kong, right?
Yes.
I think there's parts of that that's stop motion.
Absolutely. Him on I think any scene with King Kong in that, or no, maybe not any. Could definitely be a guy in a suit, but thinking of the Empire State Building for sure.
Yeah.
And the old one, absolutely stop motion.
There you go.
Like even the movements of his arm, they're like very slow, and you can tell.
Huh.
I'm thinking back on it right now.
And I think there are plenty of other live action movies that have used that technique as a form of sort of CGI or special effects, and I think that's awesome. I think that should probably be done more, with especially how good stop motion is getting.
I know, but I was about to say that's really cool. I'm sure that tactic has almost all but died out at this point since we have CGI. Like I'm sure AT-ATs in Rogue One are CGI, not stop motion now.
Right.
It's just interesting that was once used, but now that we have new technology, you don't even really need that technique. And I would be interested to see what it would be like now to not have to strategically and specifically use stop animation or stop motion in a scene rather than use CGI in a current movie and see what it would look like.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? Well, I enjoy them. I hope more come out. Kubo just really stepped the bar up, so I'm curious to see if anyone else. As much as I like 3D animated movies, even though I've never liked them as much as 2D animated, I'm kind of over them. Not completely over them, but there's just so many now that whenever a different kind of animation comes out, I'm inclined to go see it and more interested.
Yeah. Well, we've got Wes Anderson's new one coming out.
Yep.
I think it got bumped up actually since we talked about it last. I think it's coming out in maybe April or earlier in March. So
nice.
That's coming soon. That'll be cool. But there's also another thing I wanted to mention. There's a lot of stop motion that happens on YouTube, like independent creators just making their own stuff on their own YouTube channels. A lot of them utilize stop motion, and it's very cool. Some of the coolest stuff has been made by independent people on YouTube. Like for me, the standout in my mind is Mystery Guitar Man. I don't know if you've ever seen any of his videos.
Yeah,
but he uses it a lot to make music. It's very cool, and to animate things, and it's awesome. So it's kind of interesting to see, like, as maybe it's fallen out of favor in Hollywood a little bit, more the DIY generation of filmmakers is like eager to use it.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Because it's also, since it's so tedious and just time consuming, I'm sure it's much better for shorts. Like very short, even seconds long or up to a minute. I'm sure it's just more geared for that kind of storytelling and production.
Mm-hmm.
Although if you have a huge production crew and capacity, obviously, then you can turn it feature length. But I am just continually impressed in the amount of time and patience it takes to do it. In both like creating the models and the dolls and then using them and slowly moving them.
Yeah.
I'm always highly impressed when they pull off a great stop motion movie.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I got, man.
Yeah, I think that's all it's got. That's all I have as well. I don't think I mentioned a favorite though, so I'll briefly say it's either Kubo or Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yep. I mean, they're way up there.
I'm torn. They're both so good.
Although I feel like if almost anyone in my family was on, they would say Fantastic Mr. Fox. at least Zach or my dad.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's definitely third.
It's safely in third place.
Yeah, secure.
Well, all right.
Is that the show?
That's the show.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening to yet another week of Afterthoughts. If this is your first week with us, welcome. We've been doing it for a while. You can check out plenty of old episodes. I would recommend anything from 2017. And if you use all those up, then maybe check out the ones from 2016. I think this has been our year. We're getting into it. We're getting better at it.
Or just, start with episode 1, Finding Dory, and just immediately be turned off by this podcast.
Good luck. Good luck there. Thanks for listening. For however many episodes you've been listening, we really appreciate it. It would be awesome if you want to continue to support the podcast, if you could share the podcast with a friend, tweet it out. Find us on Twitter, retweet the link when we send it out, share it with friends, or, give us a review on iTunes. That would be very awesome and very helpful. I don't know what we're talking about next week, so you'll just have to wait and see. Hopefully it'll say it in the description of this episode. And we'll see you next week.
Yep, see y'all.
Bye.